Most men spend their entire lives being emotionally manipulated in relationships without even realizing it. Like fish, unaware of the water they swim in, they mistake manipulation for normal relationship dynamics. Jealousy tests, emotional outbursts, and constant demands, all misinterpreted as signs of love and passion. The cycle continues because they've never been given the tools to recognize it. Stoic philosophy offers a solution that's been hiding in plain sight for over 2,000 years. Today I'm going to show you how 3 powerful Stoic principles can transform your dating life, helping you remain centered amidst chaos and attract partners who value your strength rather than prey on your vulnerabilities. So you're interested in putting these Stoic principles into practice. Let's talk about how to actually implement them in your daily life. Because philosophy only works when you apply it, I want to give you practical steps you can start using today. The 3-stage framework for Stoic practice. Awareness stage. Take 5 minutes each morning for reflection. Consider what relationship challenges you might face today. Ask, what situations might test my emotions? How would my best self respond? Simply notice emotional reactions without changing them. Label feelings as they arise. I'm feeling jealous right now. This awareness begins breaking the automatic cycle of reaction. Application stage. After a few weeks of awareness practice, when emotional triggers arise, apply specific Stoic techniques. Practice cognitive distancing. I notice I'm having the thought that she's losing interest. Create space between yourself and your thoughts to evaluate their truth. Apply the dichotomy of control. Identify what aspects you can and cannot influence. Recognize that your partner's behaviors and feelings are outside your control. Focus on your responses, boundaries, and values. These remain within your control. Integration stage. Stoic principles become your natural response to challenges. Requires 6 to 12 months of consistent practice. Signs of success: faster recovery after arguments, thoughtful responses instead of reactions. You'll experience decreased anxiety about relationship uncertainties. Others may comment on your improved emotional stability. Common challenges and solutions. Most men struggle with 2 significant hurdles when implementing Stoicism: distinguishing what you can and cannot control. Emotions make everything feel personal and within your influence. Solution: practice recognizing control boundaries daily, especially in low-stakes situations. Expect difficulty with this distinction in the beginning. Intellectualizing emotions rather than experiencing them. Some use Stoicism to avoid difficult feelings. Solution: allow yourself to fully feel emotions before applying rational assessment. Stoicism aims for wise responses to feelings, not suppression. Handling setbacks effectively. Setbacks provide valuable information about areas needing more practice. After emotional reactions, ask, what triggered me? What thought pattern led to that reaction? Practice self-compassion rather than harsh self-criticism. Treat yourself as you would a friend, learning a new skill. Acknowledge mistakes, identify lessons, and recommit to practice. Communicating boundaries with emotional intelligence. Express boundaries without appearing cold. I respect your independence and trust you, rather than I don't care if you go out. Use I statements. I feel uncomfortable when. Instead of your being controlling, focus on your experience rather than attacking the other person. Maintain respect while clearly communicating your principles. Emergency protocols for intense situations. When facing potential breakups, serious conflicts, or betrayals, establish a simple emergency response plan. Example protocols: take 3 deep breaths before responding, or ask for time to think before decisions. Create physical reminders of your Stoic practice. Use phone lock screens with meaningful quotes, or wear a specific item as a tangible reminder. Building a support system. Community support significantly increases success with Stoic integration. Join online forums focused on practical Stoicism. Find a friend interested in similar personal growth. Consider working with a coach familiar with these concepts. Share experiences and hear others' journeys for accountability and perspective. Real results from small practices. These small daily habits create remarkable changes. Mark practiced evening reviews of emotional triggers. After 3 months, his girlfriend noticed he no longer became defensive in difficult conversations. Jason applied the dichotomy of control to texting anxiety. Within weeks, he stopped creating relationship problems that didn't exist. Thomas used negative visualization for 5 minutes each morning. This reduced his fear of loss and actually strengthened his relationship. Getting started today. Begin with just one principle that resonates with you. The dichotomy of control. Distinguishing what you can and cannot influence. Negative visualization to reduce fear of rejection. Virtue-based decision-making. What would a wise, courageous, just, and temperate person do? Apply your chosen practice consistently for 1 month. Then evaluate its impact on your relationships. Once it becomes natural, add another practice. This gradual approach builds sustainable change rather than temporary motivation. Remember that Stoicism is a lifetime practice that becomes more effective with consistent application. Balancing attachment and detachment. The Stoic middle path. When most people hear Stoicism, they immediately picture someone cold and emotionless, a person who suppresses their feelings and avoids deep connections. This misunderstanding keeps many from discovering one of the most valuable aspects of Stoic philosophy, the balanced approach to relationships that allows for both deep connection and emotional independence. The Stoics actually had a sophisticated understanding of human attachment. They promoted what they called appropriate affection, loving deeply while maintaining inner freedom. This middle path allows you to care intensely about your partner without making your emotional stability dependent on them. Think about the relationships you've experienced or observed. Some people become completely absorbed in their relationships, losing their identity and emotional stability. Their mood, self-worth, and decisions revolve around their partner. Others maintain rigid emotional walls, never allowing themselves to be vulnerable. The Stoic middle path rejects both extremes. Imagine walking a tightrope between attachment and independence. Lean too far toward attachment, and you fall into dependency. Lean too far toward independence, and you tumble into isolation. The Stoic approach helps you maintain perfect balance, connected yet free, invested yet stable, loving yet autonomous. The ancient Stoics valued meaningful human connections as essential to a good life. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the importance of love and connection. What made their approach unique was that they paired this capacity for deep connection with an equally developed sense of inner freedom. This balance allows you to love someone completely while accepting that all relationships are ultimately outside your control. You can care deeply about your partner while recognizing that you cannot control their feelings, choices, or whether they stay in your relationship. This recognition is realistic and ultimately liberating. Here are practical guidelines for maintaining this balance in everyday interactions. First, practice loving attention, being fully present with your partner without attempting to control them. Listen to understand rather than to respond. Appreciate them as they are without trying to change them. This attention shows genuine care without crossing into possession. Second, recognize the difference between preferences and demands. It's natural to prefer that your relationship continues and thrives. It becomes unhealthy when this preference transforms into a demand that causes suffering when unfulfilled. Hold your desires as preferences. I would like this relationship to continue rather than demands. This relationship must continue or I cannot be okay. Third, regularly practice gratitude for your relationship while acknowledging its temporary nature. Each day, take a moment to appreciate specific aspects of your connection. This practice increases your enjoyment while gently reminding you to value the present rather than grasp for permanent security. Fourth, maintain your individual identity. Continue pursuing your own interests, maintaining friendships, and developing as an individual. A healthy relationship enhances your life without becoming your entire life. This balance ensures you remain a whole person whether or not the relationship continues. Last, Practice accepting disappointments with grace. When your partner falls short of your expectations, as all humans inevitably will, use this as an opportunity to practice acceptance. This doesn't mean accepting abuse. It means acknowledging human imperfection without withdrawing your care. Consider how this applies to your own relationship. When you truly love someone, you want the best for them. The Stoic approach adds the wisdom of recognizing that genuine love includes accepting the other person's freedom, including their freedom to lead. This acceptance doesn't diminish your connection. It deepens it by removing the element of clinging that often masquerades as love. This perspective helps you love deeply while accepting the impermanence of relationships. Nothing in life is permanent, not even our longest, most committed relationships. The Stoic embraces this reality as part of what makes human connection so precious. Jacob, a longtime student of Stoicism, described how this perspective transformed his marriage. Before, I was constantly anxious about losing my wife. I tried to control situations to prevent anything that might threaten our relationship. When I accepted that our relationship, like everything in life, is temporary, I paradoxically began loving her more fully. I stopped taking our time together for granted. The balance between attachment and detachment creates both meaningful connection and emotional stability. When you love someone deeply while maintaining your inner center, you create a relationship with emotional depth that doesn't threaten your well-being. Michael noticed this shift after practicing Stoic principles. I used to check my girlfriend's online activity constantly, always looking for signs she was losing interest. Now I focus on being the best partner I can be, and accept that the rest isn't up to me. The relief is incredible. I actually enjoy our relationship now instead of constantly worrying about its future. This balanced approach allows for vulnerability without dependency. True intimacy requires sharing your authentic self, including your fears and hopes. The Stoic approach encourages this openness while maintaining emotional resilience. You can reveal your true self without fearing that rejection would destroy you. Sarah applied these guidelines after multiple relationships where she lost herself completely. I used to make my partner my entire world. Now I maintain my own friends, interests, and goals, while still investing deeply in my relationship. I love more deeply now, but I'm not desperate about it. This approach creates relationships that enhance rather than define your life. You can love with your whole heart while maintaining your inner freedom. The result is a more genuine connection based on choice rather than need. The authenticity that comes from two whole people choosing each other rather than two incomplete people needing each other. By finding this balance, you experience the profound joy of loving freely, without the burden of emotional dependence. Building authentic connections through Stoic principles. Let's talk about building real connections, not the superficial kind that fall apart as soon as they're tested, but authentic bonds that actually make your life better. Stoicism offers a straightforward path to these deeper relationships, and it starts with showing up as yourself, rather than performing what you think others want to see. When you approach relationships through Stoic principles, you stop trying to impress people with an artificial version of yourself. Many men exhaust themselves maintaining a facade they think is attractive, pretending to be wealthier, feigning interest in activities they dislike, or agreeing with opinions they don't share. This performance might work initially, but it creates relationships built on fiction rather than reality. Stoicism encourages authenticity by shifting your focus from external validation to internal character. Instead of asking, "Will this make me look good?" you ask, "Does this align with my values?" This shift transforms how you show up in relationships. You speak honestly, express genuine interests, and represent yourself accurately. The freedom this creates eliminates the burden of maintaining a false image. This authentic approach fosters virtue-based attraction. You develop genuine qualities, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, which naturally draw people who value substance over surface traits. The resulting relationships have depth because they're based on your actual self rather than a performance. Consider these contrasting approaches. Manipulation-based connections require constant maintenance, monitoring words, calculating texts, strategically withholding attention. Virtue-based connections flow naturally from your character. When someone appreciates your integrity and consistency, you don't need tactics to maintain their interest. Like a well-tended garden that thrives with proper care, rather than artificial enhancement. These relationships grow naturally from authentic roots. This approach extends to honest communication about expectations and boundaries. Many relationship problems stem from unexpressed expectations, hoping your partner will somehow intuit what you want. Stoicism encourages clear communication about what matters to you, creating clarity that prevents misunderstandings. Jason struggled with feeling disappointed when women he dated wanted constant texting throughout his workday. Rather than responding resentfully, he began explaining early in relationships that he prefers focused work during the day and engaged conversation in the evening. Some women weren't compatible with this preference, but those who were appreciated his clarity. The relationships that continued were based on mutual understanding rather than unexpressed frustration. Boundaries function similarly. Clearly stating "I need advance notice for plans," or "I prefer not to discuss certain topics," establishes mutual respect. When communicated calmly and without apology, these boundaries build genuine trust. Stoicism also encourages evaluating potential partners by their character traits. This doesn't mean ignoring physical attraction, which naturally plays a role in romantic relationships. Rather, it means examining whether someone demonstrates honesty, courage in difficult situations, and fairness toward others. These qualities predict relationship quality far better than appearance or status. Furthermore, this focus naturally attracts compatible partners. When you evaluate relationships based on character alignment rather than superficial factors, you filter for people who share your fundamental outlook. Quality over quantity becomes your relationship philosophy. Accepting imperfection creates additional space for authentic connection. Many relationship problems stem from unrealistic expectations, believing the right partner will never disappoint you. Stoicism teaches that imperfection is universal and acceptance is wisdom. When you recognize that both you and your partner will make mistakes, and sometimes fall short, you create an environment where authenticity flourishes. This doesn't mean tolerating unhealthy behavior. It means acknowledging humanity while maintaining standards for how you treat each other. This realistic perspective helps identify truly compatible partners. Someone who expects perfection creates a relationship filled with disappointment and blame. A person who accepts imperfection while striving for growth establishes conditions for lasting connection. You want a partner who sees you clearly, strengths and weaknesses, and chooses you with open eyes. Mutual growth through virtue creates remarkable stability. When both partners commit to developing wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, they share a purpose beyond enjoying each other's company. This shared commitment provides an anchor during relationship challenges. Mark and Sarah embodied this approach. During conflicts, they would ask, "What virtues could help us navigate this situation better?" Rather than focusing exclusively on who was right, they examined how they could both grow through the challenge. Their relationship strengthened through difficulties instead of weakening. Shared values become the foundation for lasting connection. When you and your partner align on fundamental principles, how to treat others, what constitutes a good life, what matters most, you create a sturdy base. These shared values guide important decisions and help navigate complex situations together. This doesn't require agreeing on everything. Healthy relationships include differences, but alignment on core values, honesty, respect, growth, compassion, creates a partnership that superficial compatibility cannot match. David noticed this difference in his current relationship. Before, we shared interests, same music, restaurants, activities, but when serious issues arose, we had no common ground for resolving. Now my partner and I might disagree on details, but we approach problems with the same fundamental values. We know we're on the same team. The beauty of authenticity is that it naturally attracts authentic partners. When you show up genuinely, with clear communication, virtue-focused behavior, and acceptance of imperfection, you create conditions where only compatible people remain interested. Those seeking someone to manipulate quickly move on when they realize their tactics don't work. This creates a natural filtering system, leading to healthier relationships with less effort. Your authentic presence automatically selects for people who value the real you, establishing genuine trust that makes everything else easier. Communication, intimacy, conflict resolution, and growth. Emotional resilience. Stoic techniques for maintaining independence. The Stoics understood something profound about our emotions. that modern psychology has only recently caught up with. Our emotions don't come from external events, but from our judgments about those events. When your partner doesn't text back, it's not their silence that causes your anxiety. It's your interpretation of that silence as rejection or disinterest that creates the emotional response. This insight is powerful because it puts you back in control. If your emotions come from your judgments, you can examine and potentially change those judgments. This doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending not to care. It means recognizing that you have more influence over your emotional life than you might think. Think about the last time someone you were dating did something that upset you. Maybe they canceled plans last minute, or took hours to respond to an important message. The event itself is neutral. Your judgment, "They don't respect my time," or "they're losing interest," creates the emotional response. Recognizing this connection between judgments and emotions is the first step toward emotional resilience. Negative visualization is a practical Stoic technique that can dramatically reduce your fear of rejection or loss in relationships. The practice involves intentionally imagining scenarios you fear: your partner breaking up with you, someone rejecting your advances, or a relationship not working out. Like a vaccine that exposes you to a weakened form of a virus, negative visualization builds your emotional immunity by exposing you to small doses of what you fear. James, a client who was paralyzed by fear of rejection, started practicing negative visualization daily. He would take 5 minutes each morning to imagine a woman he was interested in turning him down. After a few weeks, his fear had significantly decreased. When he eventually did face rejection, he handled it with unexpected calm. "I'd already played out this scenario in my mind," he told me. "It wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't devastating either." This practice builds confidence in your ability to withstand difficult outcomes. It reduces the leverage that fear of rejection has over your decision. Related to this is the premeditation of adversity, mentally rehearsing for relationship challenges before they occur. Each morning, consider what difficulties you might face that day. Perhaps your partner might be in a bad mood, or you might encounter a situation that triggers jealousy. Think about how you want to respond. What would your best self do? By rehearsing these scenarios, you're less likely to be caught off guard. You've created a response plan that helps you act according to your values rather than react from triggered emotion. Michael used this technique to prepare for a difficult conversation with his girlfriend about boundaries. By mentally rehearsing various scenarios, he felt prepared rather than anxious. The actual conversation went more smoothly than expected, but Michael was emotionally prepared regardless of the outcome. Specific meditation techniques can help maintain emotional equilibrium in relationships. Try this simple practice. Sit quietly for 5 minutes and focus on your breathing. When relationship thoughts arise, notice them without judgment, then return to your breath. This trains your mind to observe emotions without immediately reacting to them. Another effective meditation involves focusing on your value. Spend 5 minutes contemplating the kind of person you want to be in relationships: patient, honest, kind, respectful. This creates an internal compass that guides your behavior even when emotions run high. Stoic journaling provides another powerful tool for processing relationship emotion. Try this structure. Write down a relationship situation that triggered strong emotions. Identify your judgments about the situation. Consider alternative interpretations. Reflect on how you responded and how you might respond differently next time. Thomas kept a Stoic journal during a challenging relationship. "When she didn't introduce me to her friends, I immediately thought she was ashamed of me," he wrote. "But there could be other explanations. Maybe she's taking things slow." This practice helped him see how his interpretations created unnecessary suffering. Cognitive distancing creates space between triggers and responses. When emotionally triggered, practice naming the emotion. "I'm feeling jealous right now." Like a skilled sailor who notices the approaching storm but doesn't become the storm, you observe your emotional weather without being swept away by it. This space allows you to choose how to respond rather than react automatically. You might still feel jealous when your partner mentions an ex, but cognitive distancing helps you notice that feeling without immediately acting from it. This pause is where your freedom lies. These practices build emotional resilience over time. Before I learned these techniques, my emotions were like wildfires, shared Maya, a workshop participant. Now they're more like candles, still warm and real, but contained and under my care. The result is the ability to engage authentically in relationships without fear controlling your behavior. When you're not terrified of rejection, you can express your true thoughts and feelings. You can set boundaries without fear of consequence. You can evaluate relationships based on their actual quality. Sarah described how this transformed her dating life. Before, I was so afraid of being alone that I accepted treatment I never should have. Now I can genuinely connect with people without that desperate need for them to like. This has led to much better connections because I'm being my authentic self. These techniques work in real scenarios. When David's girlfriend gave him the silent treatment after a disagreement, his old pattern would have been anxious attempts to fix the situation. Using Stoic practices, he recognized his anxiety, remembered that her response was outside his control, and responded with calm compassion. The dynamic shifted immediately. When Rebecca faced a potential breakup, negative visualization helped her approach the conversation with surprising calm. I had already imagined life without him, she said. It was sad, but I knew I would be okay. This emotional preparation allowed her to express herself clearly, rather than speaking from fear of loss. The ultimate freedom these practices create is the ability to choose relationships rather than need them. You can assess potential partners based on compatibility and shared values. You can love deeply while maintaining your center, and you can walk away from relationships that don't serve your well-being, because your emotional stability doesn't depend on any particular person staying in your life. Practicing virtuous response. The Stoic approach to conflict. Stoicism offers more than just defensive techniques against manipulation. It provides a positive framework for engaging with relationship challenges through what the Stoics called the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These virtues aren't abstract philosophical concepts. They're practical tools for navigating difficult conversations and conflicts in your relationships. These four virtues function as pillars supporting a strong relationship foundation, creating a system for responding to manipulation thoughtfully rather than reactively. When facing challenging situations, these virtues guide your responses in ways that maintain your integrity while disarming manipulation attempts. Wisdom, or what the Stoics called practical wisdom, helps you make sound judgments in complex situations. In relationships, this means recognizing what's happening beneath the surface and choosing effective responses. When your partner tries to manipulate you through jealousy, wisdom helps you identify the true nature of the test and avoid the emotional reaction they're trying to provoke. Practical wisdom involves asking, what's really happening here? What's the intent behind this behavior? What response would best serve my values? Wisdom helps you distinguish between normal relationship friction and actual manipulation. Consider Tom, who noticed his girlfriend regularly started arguments right before important work events. Wisdom helped him recognize the pattern and address the underlying issue. I've noticed this timing happens regularly. Can we talk about what's really going on? This approach addressed the real issue rather than fighting about the surface-level topic. Courage allows you to stand firm when facing emotional pressure. This virtue means maintaining your boundaries and speaking your truth even when uncomfortable. Courage enables you to say no, name manipulation when you see it, and walk away from relationships that consistently violate your boundaries. The Stoics understood that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in the presence of fear. When your partner uses emotional outbursts to control you, courage helps you stay grounded rather than immediately trying to soothe them at your own expense. Michael demonstrated courage when his girlfriend used threats to leave whenever he expressed needs. I understand you're upset, but threatening our relationship isn't a healthy way to resolve differences. I'm willing to discuss this when we can talk without threat. This response preserved his self-respect while risking the relationship. While wisdom helps identify manipulation and courage helps confront it, justice ensures balance is maintained in the relationship. Justice in Stoic philosophy focuses on fairness and treating others with respect. Rational assessment. Using Stoic logic to identify manipulation. One of the most powerful tools Stoicism offers is logical assessment, a systematic way to evaluate situations objectively. The ancient Stoics believed that clear thinking was essential for a good life. They developed methods to cut through emotional confusion and see reality as it actually is. These same methods can help you identify manipulation in relationships before it damages your life. Stoics distinguished between impressions and reality. Impressions are your initial reactions to situations, the automatic thoughts and feelings that arise before critical examination. Reality consists of objective facts. Most people live entirely in their impressions, reacting emotionally to whatever crosses their path. Stoics practiced stepping back from impressions to examine them before accepting them as true. Think of your mind as a filter. Impressions are the unprocessed mixture flowing in, while rational assessment sifts out emotional reactions to reveal the clear water of objective reality beneath. This mental filtering process allows you to respond to facts rather than reactions. This distinction transforms relationships. When your partner upsets you, your first impression might be intense: anger, hurt, jealousy. A Stoic approach pauses before reacting. Ask yourself, is my interpretation accurate? What are the actual facts here versus my emotional reaction? Consider this example. Your partner mentions having lunch with an attractive coworker. Your immediate impression might include jealousy or suspicion. A Stoic would examine what actually happened. Your partner told you about the lunch fact rather than hiding it. The conversation occurred in a public place during work hours. Fact rather than a secret meeting. Separating facts from impressions helps you respond to reality instead of fears. When assessing relationship dynamics, ask these Stoic-based questions. What evidence supports this interpretation? Is this pattern consistent over time? Do words and actions align? Would I advise a friend to accept this behavior? Does this respect my autonomy? These questions create distance between emotional reactions and assessment, helping you identify manipulation tactics. Ask yourself, what benefit would someone gain from this behavior? Stoics were practical about human motivation. If your partner's behavior seems confusing, consider their potential gain. Sometimes apparently irrational actions make sense when you identify the actual goal. If arguments mysteriously arise before your important events, consider whether sabotage might be the purpose. Identifying weaponized emotions is crucial. Emotions become weapons when deployed strategically to control your behavior. Signs include disproportionate reactions to minor issues, convenient emotions when you set boundaries, or emotional displays that consistently result in you sacrificing something important. Mark applied this approach when he noticed his girlfriend crying whenever he mentioned family time. He recognized a pattern. Her emotional displays always resulted in canceled family plans. The timing and consistency revealed these weren't natural emotions, but tactical responses designed to isolate him from support. Stoic logic helps evaluate relationship tests or demands. Ask, is this request reasonable? Does it align with mutual respect? Would this person accept the same from me? Does complying benefit both of us? These questions distinguish normal needs from manipulative control tactics. Sarah's boyfriend would test her loyalty by checking her phone, demanding immediate text responses, and questioning her about male friends. Through rational assessment, she realized these weren't security needs but control tactics. Reasonable security doesn't violate privacy or restrict normal friendships. During conflicts, Stoic logic separates facts from interpretations. When your partner says, "You never listen to me," the fact might be that you disagreed with their opinion. The interpretation that you never listen shifts the discussion from the specific issue to your character. Watch for manipulative language patterns. Absolutes, you always, you never. Mind reading, you don't care. And character attacks rather than addressing specific behavior. Stoic assessment helps identify these patterns and refocus on facts. Inconsistency between words and actions signals manipulation. People reveal true intentions through behavior while using words to create different impressions. A Stoic approach prioritizes actions over words. If someone repeatedly claims to respect you while violating your boundaries, their actions reveal the truth. Jason's girlfriend frequently praised honesty while he discovered small lies about her whereabouts. The gap between her stated value, honesty, and actions, dishonesty, showed her words created a false impression. Focus on patterns rather than isolated incidents. Anyone can make mistakes. Manipulation reveals itself through consistency over time. Keep a simple journal of concerning interactions and review it periodically to identify patterns that might be missed when examining individual incidents. Rational assessment creates crucial emotional distance from manipulation attempts. By examining situations logically, you create space between trigger and response. This space gives you freedom to choose reactions rather than responding automatically in ways that serve the manipulator's goals. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally detached. It means engaging your rational mind alongside emotions. You can feel hurt while simultaneously assessing whether that hurt was intentionally provoked. This dual awareness protects you while allowing emotional availability. Regular practice builds confidence in your judgment. Many manipulation victims doubt their perceptions. Consistent Stoic assessment builds trust in your evaluation abilities. Each time you correctly identify manipulation, you strengthen your pattern recognition for the future. What once required conscious effort becomes intuitive. Remember, rational assessment isn't about cynicism. It's about seeing clearly to make informed relationship choices. The goal is developing discernment to recognize genuine connection and distinguish it from control tactics. With practice, this approach becomes second nature, allowing you to navigate relationships with both emotional openness and clear-eyed wisdom. Developing internal validation. The Stoic path to freedom. At the heart of Stoicism lies a powerful concept that can transform your relationships. Internal validation. This means finding your worth from within rather than seeking it from others. Think of internal validation as having an inner compass that guides your decisions regardless of what others think or say about you. When you validate yourself, you recognize your own value based on your character and actions rather than relying on compliments, attention, or approval from partners. External validation depends entirely on what others think of you. It's seeking approval, compliments, and acceptance from people around you to feel good about yourself. We all enjoy receiving praise and affection. That's natural. The problem begins when you need this external approval to maintain your sense of self-worth. This dependence creates a vulnerability that manipulative partners quickly identify and exploit. Consider James, a client who constantly checked his phone for messages from his girlfriend. When she didn't respond quickly, he felt anxious and unworthy. He sent multiple messages, apologized for things he hadn't done wrong, and changed his plans whenever she requested. His need for external validation had created perfect conditions for manipulation. His girlfriend controlled his behavior simply by giving or withholding her attention. Manipulation targets those who rely on external validation because it creates leverage. When you need someone's approval to feel okay, you'll do almost anything to maintain it. A manipulative partner learns they can control your behavior by strategically giving and withholding validation. This pattern creates a relationship where your emotional state constantly depends on another person's words and action. You focus on winning approval rather than assessing whether the relationship is healthy, often ignoring red flags or abandoning your values. Developing internal validation breaks this cycle. When you value yourself based on your own standards, manipulation tactics lose their power. Here are practical exercises based on Stoic principles to help you build this skill. Daily reflection. Each evening, ask yourself, what did I do today that aligned with my values? Where did I show courage, wisdom, justice, or self-control? This shifts your focus from external opinions to your character. Personal value inventory. Write down the qualities you most respect in others: honesty, courage, loyalty, compassion. Then assess how well you're embodying these qualities. This creates a clear internal standard for measuring your worth. Capability reminder. As Marcus Aurelius suggested, take a few minutes each morning to remember times you showed resilience, made good decisions under pressure, or stayed true to your principles despite challenges. Building your inner fortress. Visualize your self-worth as a fortress built on the solid foundation of your character. Each time you act according to your values, add a stone to this fortress. Notice how external criticism bounces off these walls rather than penetrating your sense of self. The ancient Stoics highly valued self-sufficiency, or autarkeia. This concept refers to finding contentment and worth from within, rather than from external sources. The Stoics didn't advocate isolation, they actively participated in society and valued relationships, but they understood that true freedom comes from being emotionally self-sufficient. This self-sufficiency matters today because relationships have become a primary source of validation for many men. When your sense of worth depends on having a partner or maintaining their approval, you surrender your emotional freedom. Building autarkeia means approaching relationships from a position of inner strength rather than inner need. Practicing self-sufficiency involves spending time alone without constantly checking your phone. It means pursuing interests regardless of whether they impress potential partners. It means learning to sit with uncomfortable emotions without immediately seeking external comfort. A core Stoic practice involves evaluating your worth based on your character rather than others' opinions. External factors, appearance, status, wealth, others' opinions were considered indifference because they didn't determine your worth as a person. To apply this, notice when you're seeking validation. Are you changing your opinion to match your partner's? Dressing differently to gain approval? Abandoning interests because someone criticized? When you catch yourself seeking external validation, pause and ask, what would I choose if I were measuring this decision against my values rather than seeking approval? As you develop internal validation, natural boundaries emerge in your relation. When you value yourself based on your character, you become unwilling to compromise your integrity for acceptance. You naturally set limits on behavior you'll tolerate because your self-worth isn't negotiable. Michael, a 35-year-old who practiced these principles, described his transformation. I used to let women talk to me however they wanted because I was afraid of losing them. Now I know my worth isn't determined by whether someone stays with. I recently ended a relationship when I realized she regularly belittled me. 3 years ago, I would have accepted that treatment indefinitely. This shift doesn't happen overnight. Each time you make a decision based on your values, rather than seeking approval, you strengthen this muscle. When you're grounded in internal validation, manipulation tactics lose their effectiveness. You still feel the emotional impact, but those feelings no longer determine your action. You'll find yourself attracted to different types of partners, choosing relationships based on mutual respect rather than emotional dependency. You become capable of genuine connection because you're no longer using relationships to fill an internal void. This freedom doesn't mean becoming When you're not constantly seeking validation, you can truly listen to others without defensiveness. You can give without expecting return. You can love without the desperate fear of loss that often masquerades as attachment. The Stoic path to internal validation offers something rare: relationships built on strength rather than need. When you value yourself from within, you create the foundation for connections that enhance your life rather than define. This journey begins with a simple question: what would change in your relationships if you no longer needed others to validate your worth? The Stoic mindset. Your shield against manipulation. Now that we understand why men are vulnerable to manipulation, let's explore how Stoicism offers a powerful shield against these tactics. Stoicism is a practical toolkit for navigating modern relationships with clarity and strength. First, let's clear up a common misconception. Stoicism isn't about suppressing your emotions or becoming cold and detached. It's actually about understanding your emotions and responding to them wisely. The ancient Stoics recognized that emotions aren't random. They come from our judgments about situations. When you feel jealous, it's because you've judged that someone threatens your relationship. When you feel angry, it's because you've judged that someone has wronged you. This insight is powerful because it puts you back in control. Your emotions aren't happening to you, They're happening through you, based on how you interpret events. This doesn't mean your feelings aren't real or valid. It means you have more influence over them than you might think. At the core of Stoicism is what philosophers call the dichotomy of control. The understanding that some things are within our power and others are not. In relationships, this principle is transformative. You can't control your partner's behavior, their feelings toward you, or whether they stay or leave. What you can control is your own behavior, your values, and how you respond to challenging situations. Consider a classic manipulation tactic like the silent treatment. When someone stops communicating to punish you, your instinct might be to chase them, apologize repeatedly, or change your behavior to win back their attention. This reaction comes from focusing on what you can't control, their communication, rather than what you can control, your response. A Stoic approach would recognize that their silence is outside your control. You can express your concerns clearly, set healthy boundaries about communication, and decide how long you're willing to accept this treatment. But you can't force them to talk. This shift in focus from trying to control others to managing your own responses creates immediate emotional freedom. Think of emotional triggers as stormy weather. You can't stop the storm, but with the compass of Stoic principles, you can navigate through it without losing your way. This concept directly connects to emotional independence in relationships. When you understand what's within your control and what isn't, you stop basing your happiness on your partner's approval. You can care deeply about your relationship while maintaining your inner stability. Alex, a 38-year-old business owner, described how this principle changed his dating life. Before I understood Stoicism, I'd panic whenever a woman I was dating seemed distant. I'd immediately start trying to fix things, offering more attention or gift. Now I recognize that her feelings are outside my control. I can be my best self and communicate clearly, but I can't make someone feel a certain way about me. This mindset has completely changed the power dynamic in my relationship. The Stoic view of attachments offers another powerful shield against manipulation. Stoics encouraged enjoying relationships fully, while recognizing their temporary nature. Epictetus, a prominent Stoic philosopher, suggested we approach relationships like a banquet. Enjoy what's in front of you while it's there, but don't grab desperately when dishes are removed. This healthy detachment preserves your emotional balance. This perspective is valuable because manipulation often exploits our fear of loss. When you're terrified of losing someone, you'll tolerate almost any behavior to keep them. When you appreciate them while recognizing that no relationship is guaranteed, you maintain the freedom to enforce boundaries. Moving from theory to practice, Stoicism helps you respond rather than react to relationship challenges. Responding is thoughtful and intentional. You feel the emotional trigger, but pause before choosing your next move. This distinction matters when facing manipulation attempts. For example, consider a partner who regularly starts arguments before important events in your life. The reactive approach gets pulled into the conflict, ruining your preparation. The responsive approach notices the pattern, manages the emotional trigger, and chooses a different path, perhaps setting a boundary about timing discussions. Stoicism provides mental clarity when emotions are clouding your judgment. The practice of stepping back from your immediate emotional response creates space for wisdom. When your partner tests your jealousy or tries to make you feel inadequate, you can ask, is this emotion helping me see clearly? Is this reaction aligned with my value? Ryan, a 29-year-old teacher, shared how this approach changed his response to jealousy tactics. My ex would constantly mention other guys showing interest in her. My immediate reaction was always possessiveness and anxiety. After studying Stoicism, I started pausing when those feelings came up. I'd ask what was actually happening. Was there a real threat? Or was she creating insecurity to keep me chasing her? That mental clarity helped me see the manipulation for what it was. Stoic practices build emotional resilience through techniques like negative visualization, imagining challenging scenarios before they happen, which prepare you mentally for relationship tests. Another practice, premeditation of adversity, involves considering potential relationship challenges each morning. This practical preparation means you're less likely to be thrown off balance when difficulties arise. These daily practices gradually transform how you navigate connections with others. They build a mental architecture that supports healthy relationships while naturally resisting manipulation. When you focus on what you can control, maintain healthy attachment, respond rather than react, and build emotional resilience, manipulation tactics become ineffective because you're no longer ruled by emotional triggers. In the next section, we'll explore how to develop internal validation, the Stoic path to freedom from approval seeking that makes you especially vulnerable to manipulation. Why men are vulnerable to emotional manipulation. Now that we understand how manipulation works, let's look at why men specifically are vulnerable to these tactics. It's not about intelligence or strength. It's about specific psychological blind spots that many men share. Understanding these vulnerabilities isn't about placing blame. It's about recognizing patterns that keep you stuck in unhealthy relationships. Ironically, the societal expectations that tell men to be stoic often make them more susceptible to manipulation. From an early age, men learn to suppress emotions, to man up and avoid showing vulnerability. This creates a disconnect between what you're feeling and what you're acknowledging. When your emotional warning systems are constantly muted, you miss important signals that something isn't right in your relationship. Like dashboard indicators covered with duct tape, your internal alarms go unnoticed. Think about the last time something felt off with your partner. Did you ignore that feeling? Did you tell yourself you were overreacting? This dismissal of your own emotional responses creates the perfect environment for manipulation to thrive. You can't protect yourself from tactics designed to exploit your emotions if you're not acknowledging those emotions exist. This emotional suppression leads to another vulnerability. Many men mistake intensity for intimacy. When a relationship feels dramatic, full of highs and lows, passionate arguments followed by reconciliations, it creates the illusion of depth. The emotional roller coaster feels significant, important, but intensity isn't genuine connection. Real intimacy builds gradually through consistent mutual respect, shared values, and emotional safety. It doesn't require constant tests or dramatic gestures. Yet many men find themselves drawn to relationships that feel like emotional battlegrounds because the intensity creates a false sense of importance. James, a 34-year-old client, described his relationship as never boring because he and his girlfriend had weekly explosive arguments. "At least I know she cares," he told me. But when we examined these fights, we found they always ended with James apologizing, regardless of who was at fault. The intensity wasn't passion, it was a control mechanism. External validation creates another blind spot in men's defenses. Many men measure their worth through others' reactions, particularly from romantic partners. A compliment from your partner feels more significant than 10 accomplishments at work. Her approval seems to matter more than your own self-assessment. This creates a dependency where your self-worth becomes tied to someone else's opinion. This need for external validation makes you vulnerable to anyone who learns to strategically give and withhold approval. When your partner withholds affection, it can trigger a desperate need to regain their favor. You might change your behavior, abandon boundaries, or accept mistreatment, all to recapture that feeling of being valued. Connected to this is a surprisingly common fear: being alone. Despite outward appearances of independence, many men deeply fear solitude. Society often measures male value through romantic success. Being without a partner can feel like evidence of failure. This fear creates a willingness to accept relationships that don't meet your needs. Mark, a successful 42-year-old executive, stayed with a partner who regularly belittled him in public and controlled his friendships. When asked why, he admitted, "I don't want to start over. What if I don't find someone else?" His fear of loneliness outweighed his need for respect, like a man staying in a leaking boat because the shore seems too far away. This connects directly to a core Stoic principle: external validation lies outside our control. You cannot control whether someone chooses to approve of you or love you. When you base your happiness on these external factors, you surrender your emotional well-being to forces you cannot influence. The Stoics taught that true security comes from within, from living according to your values, regardless of external circumstances. When you build internal validation, you become much less vulnerable to manipulation tactics that leverage your need for approval. Perhaps the most powerful vulnerability for many men is how sexual satisfaction can override rational decision-making. Physical intimacy creates powerful biochemical responses, increases in oxytocin, dopamine and other chemicals that promote bonding and pleasure. These biological responses can cloud your judgment. Men often ignore problematic behavior when they're sexually satisfied in a relationship. The regular release of bonding hormones creates a powerful incentive to overlook red flags. Your brain receives rewards that make it want to maintain the relationship, regardless of how unhealthy it might be in other aspects. This biological response explains why many men stay in dysfunctional relationships far longer than seems logical. The sexual connection creates a chemical fog that makes it difficult to see manipulation clearly. You focus on the physical satisfaction rather than the emotional manipulation occurring alongside it. The cognitive biases that support this pattern are numerous. Confirmation bias leads you to notice evidence that supports what you want to believe while filtering out contradictory information. Sunk cost fallacy makes you reluctant to leave after investing time and emotion. And cognitive dissonance causes discomfort when your observations contradict your beliefs. Men who grew up without strong male role models may be particularly vulnerable. Those raised primarily with a female perspective might be less likely to compare what a woman says against what she actually does. They may take statements of love at face value, even when actions tell a different story. Recognizing these vulnerabilities is uncomfortable but necessary. This awareness isn't about blaming yourself for past manipulation, but about acknowledging patterns that leave you exposed. Just as understanding defensive weaknesses helps an athlete improve, understanding your emotional vulnerabilities helps you strengthen those areas. The good news is that awareness itself is transformative. Once you recognize these patterns, you can't unsee them. This awareness becomes the foundation for change. In the next section, we'll explore how specific Stoic principles provide practical tools to address these vulnerabilities and build emotional resilience. The hidden manipulation tactics in modern relationships. Let's talk about manipulation in relationships. It's more common than you might think. Manipulation tactics work beneath the surface, subtle enough that you might miss them, but powerful enough to control your behavior. These tactics aren't random, they're systematic approaches that exploit specific vulnerabilities, especially in men. One of the most common tactics is what I call the jealousy test. This happens when your partner deliberately mentions other interested people, talks about their exes, or creates situations where you feel threatened. They might casually mention how someone flirted with them at work, or how an ex reached out to them. The goal is to trigger your protective instincts and increase your investment in the relationship. Men often mistake this for passion. When you feel that surge of jealousy, your brain interprets it as intense feelings for your partner. You think, I must really care about this person if I feel this strongly. But genuine connection doesn't require manufactured competition. When someone consistently puts you in positions where you need to fight for them, they're testing your boundaries, not your love. Take Tom's experience. His girlfriend regularly posted pictures with male friends while ignoring his texts. When he expressed discomfort, she accused him of being controlling. Yet when he spoke to female colleagues, she became visibly upset. This double standard was a calculated way to keep him off balance while maintaining her freedom. The key takeaway: consistent double standards aren't coincidental, they're deliberate control mechanisms. Another powerful tactic involves strategic emotional outbursts. A calm discussion suddenly turns into tears, shouting, or dramatic declarations. While emotions are natural, these displays aim to short-circuit your thinking brain. When your partner erupts emotionally, your focus shifts from the issue at hand to managing their feelings. The original problem, often something they did, gets buried under your efforts to restore peace. Men are particularly vulnerable here because many of us are taught to fix problems. We see an upset partner and immediately try to solve the situation. This becomes problematic when it forms a pattern. Is the emotional reaction proportional? Does it happen whenever you bring up certain topics? Does it mysteriously resolve once you've apologized or given? One client, Michael, noticed his girlfriend would cry whenever he mentioned spending time with friends. A pattern so consistent that he began avoiding these gatherings altogether. What appeared as sensitivity was actually a mechanism that isolated him from his support network. Perhaps the most insidious tactic is constantly shifting expectations. Today your partner loves your ambition. Tomorrow you're too focused on work. Today they appreciate your calm demeanor. Tomorrow you're emotionally unavailable. This moving target ensures you're always slightly off balance, constantly trying to adjust to changing standards. This tactic works because it creates uncertainty. You never quite know where you stand, so you work harder for approval. You become focused on figuring out what they want, rather than asking if this relationship serves your needs. The psychological impact is substantial. You start questioning your perception of reality, a process known as gaslighting. These manipulation tactics create a cycle of emotional dependency. You become reliant on your partner's approval, which they give and withhold strategically. Your self-worth becomes tied to their validation. You start measuring your value through their reactions, rather than your own standard. Stoic philosophy offers valuable insight here. Stoicism teaches the importance of distinguishing between what we can control and what we cannot. You can't control another person's behavior, but you can control your response to it. When you recognize that your partner's approval falls outside your control, you begin breaking free from the manipulation cycle. Some subtle tactics go unnoticed for years. Your partner might use "we" language when restricting your behavior. "We don't like when you stay out late." But "you" language when assigning blame. "You always make me feel insecure." They might rewrite history, claiming they never said things they definitely did. They might give compliments containing hidden criticisms. "You look nice today. That outfit is much better than what you usually wear." Another subtle approach involves creating obligation. They might do unrequested favors, and then expect something in return, or make sacrifices you never asked for, then use these as leverage later. This creates a sense of debt that can be called in whenever they want something from you. Pay attention to how criticism is delivered. Constructive feedback focuses on specific behaviors with care for your feelings. Manipulative criticism attacks your character with phrases like, "you always," or "you never," in patterns designed to diminish your confidence. Also notice how disagreements unfold. Do you find yourself apologizing, even when you've done nothing wrong? Does resolving conflict always require you to give in? Does your partner withdraw affection when displeased? These signal manipulation. Manipulation thrives when we lack emotional self-governance. When you haven't developed the ability to regulate your emotions, external triggers can easily control your behavior. Stoicism emphasizes developing inner stability to prevent emotions from controlling your actions. Think about your last relationship conflict. Did you make decisions based on fear, insecurity, or the desire to end uncomfortable feelings? This emotional reactivity creates the perfect environment for manipulation. The goal isn't to control others but to stop being controlled. When you establish inner stability, you create the foundation for healthier relationships, based on mutual respect, rather than emotional leverage. Understanding why men are particularly vulnerable to these tactics is crucial for developing effective countermeasures. Throughout our journey, we've explored how Stoicism provides tools for responding to emotions wisely, not eliminating them. As Epictetus taught, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. This insight reveals that our judgments, not external events, create our emotional reactions. Becoming unshakable is a daily practice. Each time you distinguish between what you can and cannot control in a relationship, you strengthen this muscle. Start small. Apply one concept tomorrow. Notice how it affects your responses. What situation could benefit from this wisdom today? With consistent practice, you'll build relationships based on strength rather than need.